was motivated to go to see a counselor because my friends that I had developed a really close-knit relationship with in my early 30s, they noticed something different about me. I had gone through a really, really tough breakup. And I went to visit one of my friends and we were talking about it. And she was like, how are you doing? And I was like, I'm okay, and something led me to ask her, well, how do you think I'm doing? And she was like, I think you're about to go into a deep depression and not talk to anybody for a while, and we're gonna all be concerned about you. And she went on to explain that as my group of friends had talked in their concern about me, they felt like they had done all that they could do. And she was like, I think you should go to counseling. And she was like, I'm more than happy to go with you. I've been to counseling. I know it can be a scary thought, but I really think you need to go to counseling. And she said that after she had spoken about the things that kind of led to her saying that to me. And so I had that moment where I couldn't deny what she had said, kind of to defend that suggestion. But on top of that, I really didn't realize how evident the way I was feeling was until she really explained that to me. So that was a big part of it. And I did consider all of those things and realize that, it would be a good idea. Let me try something new. I absolutely did have my own fears. At the time, I had used I think what is it called, ERP, the Employee Resource Program at my job. And I remember at the time, I don't know if things are different now, but they were like, well, why do you need to go to see a doctor? And of course, I didn't want to share that. And I can just remember sitting at my desk, gosh, I can feel that heaviness. And I was in tears because I just didn't want them to know that I was going to counseling. I'm one of the only Black people in this job. Somehow I figured it would get back to my boss. I just didn't want them to know I was having any kind of mental challenges. It was tough enough to be in that environment. But on top of that, it's just a taboo thing in my life. I don't know about everybody's communities, but I think it's generally in the Black community that it's just like the thing that you don't talk about or that you don't do. But I just never saw anyone growing up in my family or in my circle ever using counseling. If they did, nobody talked about it. And it just is this taboo thing that just nobody even talks about why it was taboo at the time. Nobody really did. So there was just the general social component of it, but also when I was using the ERP, which I'm pretty sure is probably a different situation now, but I just didn't want anybody to know. And, but I'm really, really glad that I did. When I think back, initially what I believe I was doing a lot of the time was talking to my family and talking to my friends who could give me information based on their experiences. And the church and pastors are a part of that as well. There would be times that I consulted with people in my church as well. And the difference for me is that when I went to a counselor and spoke with someone who had studied and understood matters of mental distress and issues, there were specific techniques that I learned that were immediately helpful, that were not, she was objective as well. And I also really it was important to me to find a Christian counselor, which I'm so fortunate that I did. But my counselor was objective and didn't know me and didn't have a reference point that was kind of muddied, if you will, with her experience of me or how she had seen me and sharing her experience of how she dealt with a bad time, which might have been great for someone else. She was able to listen to me and suggest things based on what we were able to discuss during our sessions. And I was able to take very specific tools from my time with her and continue to build on that on my own. So that was the biggest thing, is that I had a very specific and unique tool set that I started with my counselor that was just really helpful for me to establish standards that I need to make sure I have in place to maintain my own mental balance. Like, there's a part of it that made me want to make sure I did my part of dealing with my mental balance and making sure I did my part to do that. That I just think, as much as my family and friends love me, they just were incapable of giving me those specific, unique tools. Well, one of the biggest benefits of going to counseling was, number one, learning that the way I had been managing things wasn't the end. Like, there's other things I could do. That was another significant piece when my friend was talking to me, and just throughout this whole process, I was able to observe my friends kind of go through harsh times, and they'd have their moments and then move back into regular life, not quickly, but just normally. And for me, I just would get stuck mentally. It just seemed like the heaviness that I would feel just would never end. And so going through counseling, one of the best things that ever happened is, first of all, just having time and space to kind of just process things. And so throughout my life since then, I've been really good to it's been good to kind of give myself a moment to just take a breather and process things as they're happening. And then also learning techniques about knowing that my mind is capable of thinking a lot of things. But what I can do is kind of set a baseline for, acknowledging how I feel, but also acknowledging that I don't want to contribute to continued negative heaviness, and that I want to do whatever I can to stop that. So figuring out what really helps to move through a depressive state was one of the biggest things that came out of counseling. Giving myself time, setting things up so that I know what are triggers, and trying to minimize that as much as possible, but also understanding that I have a life full of all different types of emotions, and now I'm not afraid to experience those things, because I know that no matter how dark or deep things get, it will get better. One of the hardest things I think in general that we do is struggle with asking for help. And finding a good counselor is some of the best help that anyone would ever get. I just think it's amazing to me the impact that it has had overall with my life. And I know my life would be different. I would not be living a full life had I not gone to counseling. And so my encouragement to someone would be to give themselves a chance to learn something new that could mean that the way that they're moving through life, if it's heavy or dark, that it could be a little lighter. I just think those situations can sometimes make us feel like we don't have any options, but you do have options. And I think that one of the ways that I think about it is, time is going to go by whether I go to counseling or not. But I didn't want to lose any more of my life not being my fullest, best self. And I just would like to offer to someone that it's possible to have a different experience going through life, and without it being so heavy all the time.